Atheist Nomads, episode 290, Christianity's Origins Hypothesized.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin. Joining me is Lauren.
Hello.
Lauren's
kind of.
barely joining. Barely has a voice, and that is why Erin is not with us. Lauren and I are both sick, so Erin is calling in via Discord from home, where she's safe from our viruses.
Yes.
Kylie's doing well today.
Oh yeah, she is just fine.
We had a good time at Chinese New Year festival yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah, she got her first lucky Chinese New Year $2 bill.
Mm-hmm.
That was nice.
Nice.
And we got to see lion dogs dance and dragons, and it was firecrackery and awesome.
Fun. Very fun. I got sick yesterday. That was I was on my way to Oregon, and somebody took zinc on an empty stomach and got sick in a Chevron gas station in Canyon County. It was fun.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
It was the worst.
Oh my gosh. So, you went to Oregon yesterday?
I'm guessing Huntington?
I was going to be going to Huntington. We were on our way to Huntington, and I was like, oh no, my stomach hurts. Hold on, let's pull over. And then I was like, oh no. But blessing in disguise? I don't know. I mean, because as soon as I got back in the car, it was just too unsafe to drive at that point.
Yeah. You know what would have helped that?
What's that?
Marijuana.
Well, that's funny. It probably would have helped, but I couldn't get it. So.
All right. Well,
I'll try again another day without a snowstorm, and I'll remember to eat and then take my thing.
And that's one of the beautiful things
when
about...
Boiseans are desperate for pot.
That's one of the beautiful things about it moving to Ontario is those hills between Ontario and Huntington are brutal in the winter.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So, I mean, all in all,
that's why
probably for the best.
You need a caravan, so next time invite us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say road trip because it's more fun and then it's not as suspicious. But someone told me that it wouldn't be that big of a deal because it's so far off I-84 that if cops were following you, it would just be such a waste of money.
Well, it
really is.
Oregon cops don't care because it's legal, and Idaho cops can't follow you into Oregon.
Right, exactly. And so if it's just like so that was the whole thing. I was supposed to go with someone who had like car seats in the back and stuff like that, so that it would.
You guys are way too paranoid. Suspicious. You're thinking way too into it. Honestly, it was just like, oh, hey, I need to get some. You need to get some. Let's go. And then I got sick. So, yeah. Okay. Well, I hope you're feeling better today.
Well, yeah, I had food when I took zinc. So I'm good now.
All right.
Well, let's go ahead and move on into dusting off the degree. Christians generally believe that Christianity is purely descended from Judaism. But is that really where it comes from?
I'm going to guess no. Because of that rhetorical question.
So if we start with the earliest Christian text, and that's not the first book in the New Testament, it's Paul's epistles.
Epistles.
Some of his epistles, because some are frauds.
Oh.
The pseudo-Apolline epistles, as they are often referred to, because they aren't actually Pauline epistles.
Oh my God.
It's the best made-up words ever.
I know.
Oh, who comes up with this stuff?
Biblical scholars that are trying to not get fired.
They're just trying to write up theses and keep their jobs.
It's
all right.
Fun to make up. It's fun to make up words.
It is fun, especially when they have the word piss in them.
Okay, epistle is a word.
Well, yeah, but someone had to make it up at some point in time.
It's like the apostles, POSls.
It comes from Greek.
Everything comes from Greek.
Those freaky deaky Greeks.
So anyway, the non-pseudo Pauline epistles that are Pauline epistles. So the ones that, if there was an actual Paul, were written by the actual Paul.
Oh, is that what the word is from? Is Paul?
Paul is in, Pauline meaning from Paul.
Pauline epistle.
Pauline epistle.
Is that what? Oh, so the name Pauline means from Paul?
Yeah.
Pauline want a cracker?
So there's the Pauline epistles, there's the Johannine epistles, those are John's epistles.
Oh.
So what's an epistle
Petrine
versus
epistles.
an apostle?
An epistle is the writing of the apostle. An epistle is a letter. An apostle is a person.
Oh. Thank you.
Can we get a Venn diagram on this one, please?
I'm pretty sure there's a Venn diagram.
It's a flow chart.
This is a flow chart.
Flow chart.
Nice.
The apostle
data is beautiful.
Tells a scribe to write down words. The scribe writes down those words into what's called an epistle.
It's an epistle's dictation.
Apostles' dictation.
Apostles' dictation is epistles.
All
right. So anyway,
I could have somebody like that.
These earliest epistles were written by Paul to churches that he had previously founded in Syria and Asia Minor. And we find in them Paul bragging that everything he preaches was revealed to him in visions, not taught to him by any human.
So he's just making shit up.
Yeah. Basically, he brags that he's making it up. That if you go with the story of his conversion in Acts, he was struck ill and had a fever dream.
Okay, I was just going to say, so he had a fever dream. I've had a couple of those. Maybe I should talk about religion.
Yep.
Make up for religion.
Oh man, yeah. So that's the start of Christianity. Now we don't know his earliest bits because those texts don't exist. We just have the letters he wrote later to churches that he'd already started.
And those earlier texts you said were destroyed, right?
If they even existed.
Right, okay.
Maybe oral tradition kind of thing?
We don't know. We don't know because they effectively destroyed. If it did exist, they destroyed it.
Epistles, pictographs?
No. It's not that old. And he also paints the picture of a god taking human form for a few days to be killed.
Huh.
That's Christ.
Right.
Christ is also not a name. It is a title. It means savior. Coincidentally, Jesus is also a title, comes from the Hebrew and Aramaic Yeshua, which also means savior.
So it's savior?
Uh-huh.
Effectively. And so, what was his real name, one wonders? Could it have just been...
if there was a real him? Now, Yeshua was actually a common name in that time period. So, but it also means savior. So...
Jesus Christ, true name, Dave.
Right? That's what I was thinking. Oh, that's just Dave over there. No.
But
Savior.
But calling him Jesus Christ is redundant, since they mean the same thing.
Absolutely. Like when I told someone that you guys had a contagious cold, and they said that was a redundant statement.
Uh-huh.
I was like, gotcha.
Was this your roommate, the nurse?
No.
Oh.
It was the person who was supposed to be the guest today. And I was like, whatever. I'm in bed. Shut up. Don't correct me over Facebook Messenger, sir. No, he's going to come back on. We'll have a great time.
All right. So then if you look at the Gospels, Matthew and Luke both copied heavily from Mark. And Mark is the story of Yeshua, the Savior, told in the style of Homer's Odyssey.
Oh.
Kind of like how, "O brother, where art thou?" is a story told in the style of Homer's Odyssey.
I haven't seen that yet. No spoilers.
Are you serious? Get on that.
Totes serious.
Oh, it's such a good movie to watch one time.
If even then.
He has a thing against George Clooney.
Ow.
George Clooney ruined Batman.
Hey, I fixed that with Stare at Goats. Remember how awesome that movie was?
That was okay, but he ruined Batman. So
well,
anyway,
there's been plenty of Batmans after that.
That was a particularly bad one.
The Tim Burton Batmans.
Okay, that was Tim Burton's fault.
No, it was George Clooney. I couldn't blame Arnold Schwarzenegger for it.
Well.
Yeah, so anyway, so these Gospels were all written anonymously, and according to tradition, both Mark and Luke were assistants and scribes for Paul.
So we don't have any firsthand anything here.
Well, okay, so where this gets even more interesting is traditionally the book of Matthew was written by Matthew the Apostle from the story. If that's the case, then why is 65% of what he wrote verbatim taken from Mark?
Do you think maybe he was like, this is a good story, I'll just change a couple of words? No, you said it was a verbatim thing.
It's like the Disney reboot, but Old Testament, New Testament.
It would almost seem like Paul had his assistant write a gospel, and then he tasked another assistant and someone else to try writing a second edition of it, adding in a birth story, and they got different birth stories. Don't even take place in the same region or the same frickin' decade. Yeah. Tied them to real historical verifiable events, or at least persons that demonstrate, different decades. So it's weird when you really try and dig into it.
Yeah. And Kylie's super upset about it right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she is. She's like, this is bullshit!
Now, there is a fourth gospel, the Gospel of John, which according to tradition was written by John the Apostle. However, if tradition is...
The John Apostle.
But according to the best scholarly evidence, it was written probably around 120 CE. And if we assume that the gospel story was true, and that was John the Apostle, and that he was very young, as he's identified in the Gospels, he would have been 100 years old when he wrote it.
False.
Yeah, that's false.
Yep.
Yeah. Nobody believes, no serious scholar
Need
believes
a buzzer for that.
That it was actually written by John the Apostle.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what is true about John is that it probably was the same person who wrote the Gospel of John and Revelation. Best evidence for that is those two are written in very similar Greek, and it is by far the worst Greek in the entire New Testament. It is ridiculously sloppy. Like, we're talking, they're written at like a second grade education level. Barely literate. Whereas, like...
Yeah. So pretty easy to identify.
Oh, yeah.
Because,
yeah. But yeah, John it's old enough, it's light enough that it's like, it was written probably 50 years after Mark was written. That's a long time. That's in a totally different category. It's not worthwhile for considering early stuff because it is so much later.
I guess you could say he was trying to make his mark.
Wah, 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 wah.
Now, interestingly, the author of Luke also wrote Acts, which tells us that the story of the early church. So if we accept the traditional author and his relationship with Paul, according to tradition, then this story also comes from, or at least is heavily influenced by Paul. So in other words, the earliest Christian texts were written by Paul. The first gospel was written, or at least directed, by Paul. And the history of the early church was written, or at least directed, by Paul.
So he was the first Joseph Smith.
Yeah. That's what I feel. Like, if he's just coming up with this shit out of nowhere, it almost, like a fever dream, it almost sounds like, I looked into this hat.
or what's that woman from the Seventh-day Adventists?
Ellen White.
Brain
damage.
Yep.
Oh, geez.
She was having epileptic seizures?
I mean, people get creative. I've had some pretty creepy dreams, enough that I want to like write stories about them, but not anything that I think is like, this is a revelation.
Yeah.
It's going to come
But
true.
if that's all you do, if that's all your life is
right,
a monk or something, that makes sense.
Right.
Well,
yeah,
and
totally.
According to the Pauline epistles and Luke and the like, or Acts and the like, Paul was a Pharisee before that. So he was already a religious figure.
What's in a Pharisee?
Yeah.
That was one of the Jewish parties we talked about last week.
Oh, yeah.
They're the ones that survived the destruction of the temple and became modern Judaism. Right. So he was, really, in all practicality, he was a rabbi who had a fever dream and started a new religion.
How did he even survive? That sounds like something that you get killed for.
Right.
Well, okay, we'll get to that.
Oh, sorry, jumping ahead. Spoilers?
Yeah, that's a little bit of a spoiler, yeah. So I can say with the greatest degree of certainty that Paul was definitely the founder of Christianity. And that it is far more likely that Paul existed than that Jesus did.
Oh. Now,
with much less certainty, I have two hypotheses of Christianity's origin that are a little bit more fleshed out. And these are educated hypotheses, not just completely pulled out of my ass. In the first hypothesis, Paul has a fever dream of a god taking the form of a man and dying for humanity's sins. He then travels around preaching about this and starts the Christian church. The story grows over time to the Savior being a demigod born of the Jewish god raping a teenage girl in the style of Zeus.
Oh, gosh.
This demigod then gets a backstory using the well-known and familiar template of the Odyssey, and details like John the Baptist are added in an attempt to make it easier to recruit the Essenes, Mandeans, and members of the Jewish diaspora. Some of these details may have drawn on stories of actual people, because why not, if it suits your purposes, and the rest were probably made up whole cloth. So in that first version, it's basically Paul the con artist, more or less.
He's a good politician.
This one would have Paul basically as a anti-sex Joseph Smith. Whereas Joseph Smith wanted all the sex.
Oh, yeah, he did.
The second hypothesis would be movements coming together. So in the book of Acts, there are two stories of Paul visiting with the apostles in Jerusalem. In the first, he pissed off enough people that he had to escape death threats. And in the second, he was able to call a council that decided doctrine. So in this hypothesis, Paul had his fever dream and found a group of Essenes that he thought would be receptive to his message. They weren't. But he picked up some ideas from them. And years later, after he'd founded and developed a large enough group, he returned and they merged movements. The Gospels and the book of Acts were then written to show that they'd always been united.
A little bit of creative editing there.
Yeah. Now, to answer the original question from several months ago, is Christianity descended from Judaism? The systematic destruction of records for over 1,000 years definitely makes it hard to answer this question. But I would suspect that early Christians probably borrowed bits and pieces from Judaism, kind of like how Muhammad borrowed bits of Judaism and Christianity in establishing Islam, and kind of like how Joseph Smith borrowed bits of Christianity. And much like the establishment of Islam, within a century, there was nothing Jewish left. Except for keeping some of their religious texts. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to news. Last year, a federal court in Michigan ruled that the federal law banning female genital mutilation was unconstitutional and a matter that needed to be left to the states. Now, almost every single state is scrambling to ban the practice, including Idaho.
Cool.
Yeah, which, is good. I had some hair stand up reactively when I heard that, because I'm like, wait a second, is this just an anti-Islam thing? And then I'm like, well, it doesn't matter, because for the greater good,
female genital mutilation just needs to be banned. Whole.
Mm-hmm.
What was funny though is when I saw this article, it had said that it banned all forms of child genital mutilation. It did not specify a gender. So when I showed it to Dustin, I was like, okay, we need to look into this because I'm sure this is not what they meant. I'm sure they meant female only.
Right.
Because if they had banned all, that means circumcision is off the table, which Dustin and I would be fine with.
Mm-hmm.
We see no reason for circumcisions. It shouldn't even be brought up unless the parents go out of their way to request it.
Right.
And even then, I think it should be banned. It's unnecessary body modification that you shouldn't really be a thing. But anyway, yeah. So I actually read the text of the bill because none of the articles, okay, let me phrase that. Neither of the articles about it, the Statesman and Magic Valley, whatever their newspaper is, they both just said that it outlawed genital mutilation of children. The bill specifically refers to female genital mutilation.
Right.
And it specifically specifies circumcising, excising, or infibulation of the whole or any part of the labia majora, labia minora, or the clitoris of a child.
Yeah, so that covers female genital mutilation 1 through 4.
Yep. Yeah, the most major and most minor versions of it.
So yeah, okay. So it confused me because for a second I was like, why couldn't this be a federal matter? And then Dustin explained it to me that, oh yeah, that's way beyond federal jurisdiction. So yeah, good for Idaho, good for all the other states for banning that. Maybe consider banning it for males too.
Right.
To change this law, once it passes, to ban male circumcision would require changing 2 words. Remove the word female from the title of the section and add the word penis. And it's done.
Won't happen, but...
Nope.
No, I was going to say that's not going to happen though, but...
Interestingly, I also found that Idaho's changing its divorce law.
Really?
Oh.
Uh-huh. They're changing the waiting period from 20 days to 21 days.
Why?
What?
Uh-huh.
What's that mean?
What? Because are they that bored?
I looked through it and it was seriously all they did was remove the 0 and change it to a 1.
See, wait, you have to wait in Idaho. I don't know. My divorce went through the Virgin Islands, so I don't know what this
the Virgin Islands, really?
Mm-hmm, yeah, that's where my ex was living at the time.
Oh, okay.
So that's where the lawyer was from. I let him handle it. So I got the divorce papers, so I know it's legit. And he just got remarried. I noticed when I stalked.
Whoa! Save it for airing out the laundry.
Sorry. Edit that. Yeah, we can go back to that. We can air that out later. Oh.
Yeah.
20. So were you
20
bored
and 21 days. What? I don't.
Were you?
I think they're bored.
No, this was yesterday. I was looking for the bill, and it took a little while to find it. And before I clicked on a couple other bills that kind of caught my eye as seeming a little bit fishy.
Yeah.
And
I wonder,
changes to the divorce law are always something fishy.
Right. I wonder, what happened for them to be like, let's add one more day, because one more day might change their mind.
Well, some legislature or representative is like, well, he's probably going through his own divorce. And he's like, well, you can't do it because the waiting period wasn't long enough. Let's change the law.
Right.
I'm guessing it's to make sure that it doesn't fall on a weekend.
There we go.
Because if you go with 21 days, if it's assuming it's calendar days, then it will, if you file it during the week, that period will end also during the week, 3 weeks later, not possibly on a Saturday.
Okay.
There's Dustin's smart brain working again.
So smart.
That's the only justification for this that I can think of.
No, but that makes so much sense.
It really does. I bet that's not why they did it, but that's really smart.
In a less good bill that they are considering, there's a proposal to change Idaho's districting commission from being equally made up of Democrats and Republicans to giving the majority in the legislature one extra seat on the commission.
Oh, that's bullshit. They don't need to be making it partisan.
Well, what they said was, isn't their justification something like that way you can't get deadlocked?
Right, but
that's what they're saying.
The reason for the deadlock is to make it so that one party can't railroad the process.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
You undo that, then you undo the whole...
So is this what I'm hearing is called gerrymandering?
Gerrymandering,
yeah.
Named after Mr. Jerry, governor of Massachusetts back in the early 1800s, drawing district boundaries that looked like a salamander.
Oh.
Gerrymander. Salamander.
Yeah.
That's weird.
That's where it comes from.
Well, hopefully it doesn't actually
look like a salamander.
Well, no, my hope is that they don't add an extra person on.
I don't know. Did that pass, or was that just
nothing's passed yet?
No. We're way too early in the season. Never mind.
Yeah,
sorry.
It's not passed because there's been a whole bunch of stuff from my dad's the president or the head of the social justice committee at Booth, and so I get all the emails about it. Somewhat. Obviously, I don't pay attention too much to it.
Well, maybe you should for the sake of the show.
I know.
You could be our legislative correspondent.
Yeah, because they do have watchdogs.
Do you want to be a correspondent?
Yeah.
All the best shows have correspondents.
But a correspondent's a demotion from co-host.
Yeah, exactly. No, so I don't. No. But I'll update you on what Booth is doing.
All right.
Which they're constantly at the Capitol all the time. My parents were actually in the paper and on the news the other day for something. They're cooler than me. Is basically what I'm saying.
Now, one of the things with the gerrymandering in Idaho is if you look at the results of the last congressional races, the vote was like 73%, 73% Republican. The state House of Representatives is 80% Republican. So even with Democrats having an equal say in the gerrymandering process, it still gives Republicans an extra advantage.
Right.
And if they got their way, they could probably make it 95%.
Yeah, Kylie does not like that.
And this is especially going to be relevant in a couple years when Idaho most likely gets a third seat in the U.S. Congress.
And
we're kind of overdue for that.
And if you look at the layout of the state, there is no good way to draw 3 districts unless Boise is a district.
This is how kids kill podcasts. Stop grabbing the mic.
The Idaho Supreme Court has ruled against the Idaho Freedom Foundation.
Yay!
Deciding that the voter-mandated Medicaid expansion is legal. So now we just need the legislature to figure out how to fund it.
Right. And so I loved reading into this in something where the foundation basically was saying that the federal government would have their hands too much into it. And then the Supreme Court's like, no, we're not going to listen to you because Medicaid is already has federal governments plus a whole bunch of other programs. So basically they're like, shut the fuck up and go away.
You're so annoying.
Yeah.
Yes. You're wasting our time.
And as of recording, there are at least 52 confirmed measles cases in Washington and 4 in Oregon.
Nice.
This has had the positive effect of a 500% increase in demand for the MMR in Clark County, meaning that a lot of vaccine-hesitant parents have accepted reality now that they've seen measles in their own community.
Right. You need turmeric and some kind of flour doesn't help. Essential oils.
Turmeric and cardamom and throw in some curry powder and wait a second, we got some buttered chicken going on here.
Yeah, good for food. Not good for preventing
apple
disease.
Cider vinegar. That's the one that I always heard.
There we go. Yeah, turmeric with apple cider vinegar and some like peppermint oil. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. I'm sure people in essential oils and all that stuff, it does help. I mean, but it just obviously does not help against measles.
It doesn't help against anything except maybe some anxiety.
Right. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If you find it calming, then it has a calming effect for you.
Lavender it up.
If you get really tired of smelling cedar in your office.
I'm guessing there's somebody who really loves the smell of cedar.
It was some flower for a few days, and then she switched to cedar. This was probably about 2 years ago. And the next office over, and oh man, I got so tired of it. I was finally like, okay, I can't vape in here, so why can you make your smells?
Right. Well, and that's weird. And I don't know, like my office, we have a no scent policy specifically.
Well, the person that was enforcing the no scent policy at this particular work was laid off at about that point. So I have a feeling that...
Oh, no, it was the boss that was doing the essential oils.
Well, yeah, but you know that she was kind of under the whip of HR. As soon as HR was gone, she was like, you know what, I'm gonna...
And HR was still there.
Really?
Yeah.
This was before?
This was before.
I assumed that she would have...
Yeah.
She's like, let's get this cedar on.
Yeah.
Much like California did after the 2015 Disneyland measles outbreak, Washington is considering a bill to remove personal and philosophical exemptions to vaccine requirements for children in daycares and schools. Yeah, this will leave medical and religious exemptions intact.
I think that's
a definite big leap forward.
Right. For sure. I think that is wise. So, Disneyland, are you saying that Disneyland made that a requirement? Just joking. I get it, California. That would be funny, as if Disneyland was its own state, like the Vatican.
Yeah. That would be.
Orange County is just Disneyland.
Yeah.
Disneylandia.
So California used the more difficult to pass, but easier to defend in court approach of removing all non-medical exemptions.
Mm-hmm.
Which means no religious exemptions either.
Oh.
Take that.
Washington is going with the easier to pass, but harder to defend in court, leaving religious exemptions in place. And the reason why that's difficult is that favors religion over non-religion.
Yeah.
Which is how personal and philosophical exemptions have gotten in there.
How they came about in the first place.
Yep.
So they need to get this passed, and then they need to follow it up with a change.
Now, that being said, I would have no problem. Okay, I would have very little issue with a court deciding that personal and philosophical exemptions to vaccines are complete bullshit, and religious exemptions are so rare to be irrelevant, and to just let it slide. Because they are so rare that it is completely irrelevant. When you look at the states that have just medical and religious exemptions, they get like 97% vaccination rates, which is more than enough to get herd immunity.
Right. This is only if you want to have your child go to a public school, essentially.
Or private school, or daycare.
Private school. Right. So if you were just to homeschool and it really was a religious thing and you're homeschooling anyway, then
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Right.
And they would have a hard time enforcing that on homeschooling because the justification for these requirements is the public health crisis created by pooling large numbers of children into the same place.
Right.
And specifically, those laws are put in place to protect kids who also have to go to school or daycare that can't get vaccines for legitimate medical reasons. And that's also one of the reasons why religious exemptions tend to not be a particularly big issue, is religions that are not likely to vaccinate their children for religious reasons are also not likely to trust either public or even private schools with their children.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so in Kentucky, there was a vandal that broke into a Hindu temple in Louisville and defaced shrines and artwork and spray painted messages like "foreign bitches, whore, fuck you," and "Jesus is almighty is everything."
What a very Christian thing to do.
What did the Hindus ever do to you, dude?
I know, right?
Sounds like a girl said no.
That what they did was they moved to Kentucky, a Christian state, and they bought an abandoned Christian church.
That's awesome. Good for them. I mean, just to spite.
I mean, hey.
Why whores? That's what confuses. Yeah. What?
Yeah.
It's like, at least be intellectual in your insults here.
So the specifically anti-Hindu and pro-Jesus part makes sense on the religious discrimination. When you add in the foreign bitches, fuck you, and whore, this is just a racist asshole.
This just sounds like to me like somebody said no. Like he hit on a Hindu girl. She said no, and he's like, "Fuck you! I'm gonna try and ruin your life, bitch."
Yeah, I don't know.
And then later tell his friends that the bitch was crazy,
right?
Because that's what they do.
In my mind, this just seems like a drunk redneck who was like, you know what,
bitches
Saturday
and hoes,
night.
Bitches and hoes.
Yeah, it's fucking Saturday night. I'm fucked up. Let's do this thing.
Well, that was the one where the whole community came together to help them clean it up, right? Which is humanity
amazing.
Restored moment.
Right.
And not only that, but the police are investigating this as a hate crime.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They've gotten visits from numerous public officials, including their state and federal congressional and legislative representatives, and the Republican governor of Kentucky.
Nice.
Even he is like palming his face, like going, "Oh, seriously?"
This is the same douchebag that just sold Paul Revere's, not Paul Revere, Daniel Boone's old place to a church. Seriously? And by sold, I mean gave to the church.
Sold for $1 at public auction that nobody knew about.
Oh, it wasn't even a public auction. There wasn't even $1.
Oh, wow.
Just transferred ownership to a church.
Maybe he's trying to make up for it. And so he's trying to be a decent human being. Who knows?
Or maybe most Hindus are decent human beings and most people recognize that and they just think this was just bad.
Yeah.
I mean, most people are decent human beings regardless.
Unless you actually get into like the India class and religious basically warfare that's going on there. But here in America, Hindus are generally seen as being pretty benign.
Right.
The Hindu nationalism you see in India is grotesque and ugly.
Yes, definitely.
Just like Christian nationalism in the U.S.
And Outsourced is a hilarious movie and TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holi's coming up.
Oh, cool.
I'm going to have to get Kylie bombarded with some colored chalk.
You're giving her the bath afterwards.
You'd be so pretty.
Alabama executed Dominique Hakeem Marcel Ray for the 1995 rape and murder of a 15-year-old girl.
Aaron should have been the one to introduce this one.
Oh, why? Wait a minute, why?
It's children suffering.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No, this one isn't about that.
Shtick.
That's not the detail.
No, okay.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't that one.
So what makes this noteworthy is that he was Muslim and he requested to have his imam there with him as he dies. This request was denied, and they planned on having a Christian chaplain there for him.
Which he did not want.
Something he had to specifically and repeatedly deny to keep having a Christian chaplain in there. A federal appeals court had issued a stay based on his request, and the Supreme Court lifted it by a vote of 5-4.
Huh.
The 4 more liberal members of the court thought this is absurd. He should be able to have his imam there with him.
Right.
Don't force a Christian chaplain onto a Muslim. And the 5 conservative members of the court were like, this is stupid. We shouldn't even be talking about this.
Yeah, I can see. You agree on 90% of it, but if you disagree on 10%, you're going to end up fucking it up. So this is definitely a case for that.
Well, one of the issues that was involved with this is the Department of Correction policy is that while non-employed religious people can visit prisoners, only an employed chaplain who is an employee of the Department of Corrections can be present during the execution.
Oh. And of course they would never let an imam be a chaplain.
Well, currently every single chaplain is Christian.
Yeah. Well, it's Alabama.
Yeah.
Come on.
Now, what would have been the smart way of handling this to resolve their procedural issue would have been to add him on the payroll on a contract basis for a week so that he could be present and then end the contract.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a contract for one day, too. So, what is that? $10.99? Super simple.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
Just make him a temp.
Yeah, exactly.
Ah, man. Okay, so a primary school in England was going to have a play about Charles Darwin and evolution for 7 to 11-year-old students. Sounds perfectly reasonable. Until a bunch of parents objected, making the claim that this is anti-Christian. So the school canceled the play.
Boo.
Now, a bunch of parents are complaining about the canceling in part because the local Church of England vicar is the head of the school board, and this is not a church-run school.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yes. Isn't it vicar?
Yeah, they call him vicar.
He never saw Vicar of Dibley. He doesn't know.
Okay. Oh, that's the greatest show ever.
In England,
it really is, isn't it? Good old British comedies. Oh my God, Saturday nights.
In England, they pronounce it vicar. They pronounce it wrong.
That's what everybody in England pronounces it vicar.
Okay, that's our. Well, that's like I said, Saturday nights, PBS, British comedies.
Yep. If you lived in Idaho, you didn't have cable. And
that's what you watched.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Like Red Green Show. Red Green Show.
Oh my God.
Are you being served? Oh my God.
Red Green's Canadian.
Yeah, I know, but it was always on there.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Red Green Show is amazing.
Not Are You Being
Keeping
Served?
Up Appearances.
Keeping Up Appearances, yes.
We're totally nostalgia-ing it up right now.
Were those all Friday night?
Saturday night.
No,
those are Saturday night?
Yeah.
Oh, I watched Star Trek and Stargate on Saturday night.
Yeah, this is on PBS specifically, though.
Yeah.
So
I was always watching CBS Saturday night.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And then Sunday was Star Trek.
Yeah.
The Next Generation.
Which is awesome.
Wow. I don't have much more going on in my life now either. I just stayed home. Christine and I both sat on the couch and I was like, do you think we should do something today or tonight?
You sound like an old married couple.
I know. I said, do you think we should go and do something tonight? And she was like, I mean, we've been pretty productive today. Do you want to play? We played Phase 10.
Nice.
While having the Mindy Project in the background. That was our Saturday night.
That sounds amazing.
Yes.
Okay, so this play and it's getting canceled. Any thoughts?
Yes. I think that's bullshit. I think that because don't these schools also, I think someone brought this up on the Facebook group too, in saying that they have a Christmas play.
Okay.
So yeah,
which is, which like, can also be determined as being a Christian play. And,
absolutely.
So, I mean, Darwinism is it I don't know. It's just a history. The dudes, listen, we know Charles Darwin is real. That's my argument. It is history. It's a play and it's history. And we actually know this man was real. I don't think it's anti-Christian at all.
Yep.
I mean, that's my argument.
As a former... Okay, so one of the things that England has going on right now is...
Brexit. Wait, what?
Evangelical Protestant American bullshit is spreading there.
Yeah. Yeah, it... I
think we all rolled our eyes and groaned when we heard this.
Yeah. I love England. Everything about England, except for this right now. I shouldn't say everything. There's some pretty shitty stuff, like England, but damn it. I thought they were more progressive than this. How many, and of course it's probably a bunch of parents, so that's probably like 5 who are very loud.
And like anywhere else, you've got... The cities are the majority of the population, and the cities tend to be progressive.
Right.
I think this was probably out in the countryside. The further out in the countryside you go, the less progressive people tend to be.
What's it say? It says Hertford Manor, Cheshire. Yeah, that sounds country.
Yeah. I wonder if they have any cats.
Yeah. And so so the vicar is actually the head of the school too.
He's the head of the school board.
Oh, the school board.
Yeah. So this creates some definite, like there are or a large number of schools at least in England are either run by the Church of England or the Catholic Church.
Right.
Fully publicly funded. This isn't one of those. It is run by the state.
Right.
It is a secular school.
Yeah. This is not like the Vicar of Dibley, damn it.
Nope, not at all.
She would totally be down for a Darwin play.
Which Darwin Day is right around the corner.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Which is probably why
February 12th, 2/12 every year.
Which is probably why they were going to be doing a play.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
I have 2 of his books.
Yeah.
I think I have Insectivorous Plant. No, I have 3 because I have Voyage to the Beagle too. Ha ha. I rock.
You do.
And for our final story, the Pope has admitted that in many cases, priests keep nuns as sex slaves.
So what's he going to do about it? He said
he's finally admitted it. That's great.
But what are you going to do about it? That's the whole point. Like, just
and you know that
those
sex slaves had to have abortions.
Oh yeah.
So,
or children that went into their orphanages. Who the heck knows? But
yeah, we're all pretty sick of this shit.
So he talked about how Pope Benedict had to shut down an entire congregation of nuns who were being abused by priests. Why didn't they get rid of the priests?
Right. So that sounds exactly like this thing that's happening in India, right?
Yeah.
Kind of. So that's why I'm saying, like, what's he going to do about it?
Nothing. That's all we can say.
I mean, we just sit silently. It's out.
When you're so sick of something, that you're just like, whatever.
Okay, so what he said is that it's a scandal and that they're working on it.
Okay.
And that they have suspended several priests for it.
Suspended. Okay.
Well, you don't fire them, right? They're not people you fire.
Well, but suspension just means that, like, okay, that's just like that guy, that priest in Mountain Home who's suspended right now, even though he was being charged for something. Anyway, I shouldn't have brought that up because that is still an open case. Kind of.
Good point.
So.
Yep. So this is obviously a serious problem, and it needs, like everything else, priests aren't allowed to have sex the good, proper, consensual way.
Yeah.
Right,
so they abuse power to do it.
Right. And the whole thing is that, like, so my thought is, I'm sure that there are priests out there who fall in love with women and then they're like, guess what? I need to leave, whatever. And they probably get looked down upon because they leave and then get married and whatever. Right.
Oh, they're violating their vows.
Right. But yet, there are priests who keep women or nuns as sex slaves and you're just on suspension.
Totally reminds me of a sweet little movie called Little Hours with John C. Reilly and Molly Shannon, and it's really sweet, and you should watch it.
Oh, okay. Are you saying that sarcastically, or is it really?
No,
it is a sweet.
It is. I mean, okay, it's kind of funny. It's kind of dark, but it's sweet. Okay. It's kind of sweet too. Okay. So,
what is it? Little Hours?
Little Hours has John C. Reilly, Molly Shannon. What's her face that played April in Parks and Rec?
Oh, yeah.
A bunch of and it's about a covenant and nuns and.
Oh, is this the one that's on Netflix right now?
Yes.
Okay, I started to watch it and I was like, "What the hell is this?"
No, it's weird. It gets, but watch it to the end, and it'll be heartwarming. It's really sweet.
Okay.
All right, that's it for news. We do have some feedback.
Woo!
From Celia via email. Hey, Dustin, Lauren, and now Aaron, and hello to Kylie and Rocco too. I have a question for both Dustin and Lauren. I'm currently listening to the latest Atheist Nomads episode as of this writing. The anti-vax story Dustin mentioned on the show reminded me of a story I read in a newspaper about a father who pledged to disallow any unvaccinated children from coming near his own kids or something like that. I read the story after that last measles outbreak in Disneyland. My question is, what would Dustin and Lauren do as Kylie's parents if they were thrust into a similar situation as that father? Let's fast forward to a time and say that Kylie is in elementary school and she had a friend or classmate who'd never had vaccines because his parents are anti-vaxxers. On one hand, as Kylie's parents, you'd be concerned about Kylie's well-being because, let's say, for example, that Kylie can't take measles vaccine for whatever legitimate medical reason, that she has to rely on herd immunity to be healthy. But on the other hand, it would also seem unfair and punishing to Kylie's friend/classmate for not letting him come anywhere near or play with Kylie, all because his idiot anti-vax parents refused to vaccinate him for unfounded bullshit reasons. Because I'm sure Dustin and Lauren know as well, it's not fair to blame children for the fault of their parents on any issue. I don't think either Dustin or Lauren would want to punish Kylie's classmate for the ignorance of her classmate's parents, but they have to do what's best for Kylie and any means necessary as her parents. How would Dustin and Lauren respond to the situation? Do they think the response of that father from the article I mentioned at the beginning of this message is understandable but extreme? Was it the right thing to do as a parent, even though it may be unfair to his kid's unvaccinated friend, which is understandable to me too? I'm asking because I'm trying to think of what my best course of action should be if I ever become a parent and I'm thrust into a similar scenario. Of course, I'm eager to vaccinate the shit out of my future kids based on any competent doctor's professional recommendations.
Funny, you should mention this because we actually had this exact situation happen. We have family members who were anti-vax. And when Kylie was born, we made it quite clear that we would not be having her exposed to anything before proper time has passed. So basically until she got her vaccinations. It did create some discord within the family.
Yep.
And there were some people in the family who were not allowed to see Kylie before she turned 1, basically. Or before she turned 5 months. 5 months was when she got her.
It was about 4 months. She got her
MMR and the Tdap.
And flu season ended when she was about 5 months old. Because it was when my parents came to see her when she was like 2 weeks old, they brought my niece and her son. My niece was anti-vax and her son had started but not gotten to the MMR or any later vaccines after those initial couple. And my parents got to visit, and even though they came with my parents to the valley, they visited with other family members in the valley and didn't make a big deal out of it. A couple months later, my brother, who was refusing to get a flu shot, came to the area and tried guilting me, and it didn't work.
Yep, we stood by, because not only did he not get his flu shot, but he came from an area that there was a pertussis outbreak.
Yeah. Oh, there's a bad one here.
I mean, yeah, that's true, but we're just not going to risk it. You just set down some basic rules, say for the protection of our child, we're not going to allow this. There were a few exceptions with family members who couldn't get vaccinated themselves
for medical reasons.
So like my father, he's allergic to egg. He couldn't get the flu vaccine. So, but he was allowed to visit. But when you choose to not get a vaccine and then try to guilt the person into letting them see your kid, that just raises up all sorts of little heckles. And it's like, no, just now. This particular example kind of hit me because this was very similar to me being a kid, being told that I wasn't allowed to hang out with the other kids because I didn't go to church. So I could understand not wanting to make the kids suffer because of the parents' decision. But when it comes to their bodily health and mental health, you've really got to stick to your guns. And kids will make friends with other kids. And you can talk to the parents and try to come up with different ways of doing things. But
now,
yeah,
there's also I kind of put it into there's two different categories. There is when a child has a compromised or undeveloped immune system, it is everybody who comes in contact with that child's responsibility to be part of that child's protection. And if you don't take part in providing, if you don't take part in that child's herd immunity, then you shouldn't be a part of that child's herd. Once we cut the flu shot requirement when flu season ended. We cut the Tdap requirement when Kylie got her own Tdap. And we didn't have to put in a MMR requirement because the last time we were around any not on schedule MMR vaccinated children, there wasn't an active outbreak in the Western U.S. And I was watching. If this outbreak currently in Oregon and Washington had been happening in August, we would have canceled the trip to visit my family in August.
Yeah.
It sucks.
It sucks. And there are some people who will get hurt and may hold a grudge, but you've got to do it for the sake of your kid.
Now, when it comes to the point of elementary school, if your kid has all of the shots required to go to elementary school and there isn't evidence that your child is a non-responder to the vaccines, it is over the top and I would say absurd to put a requirement that all friends must also be vaccinated. That is going over the top. Unless your kid has cancer.
Yeah, or another autoimmune disease.
Right? If your kid has a compromised immune system, then that is justifiable. Then it's the same as if you've got a newborn. But if your kid is healthy and up to date on shots, then it shouldn't be a big concern.
I hope that answers your question.
And we have 3 new patrons.
That is amazeballs.
So great.
We got Jen, Eric from Wyoming, and David.
Nice.
Thanks, you all
guys.
so much.
Yeah. Wow. That's just awesome. And Wyoming, That's awesome. Waiting for Wrath is a sweet-ass podcast based out of Laramie. You are, I believe, from Cheyenne?
No. He's not.
Oh, okay. Dustin was doing was looking at something. He said, "Oh man, Cheyenne sucks," and I was like, "Yup."
There was I was looking at. I saw a job posting in Cheyenne. I was like, "Oh hell no." Yeah, no, we would not go to Cheyenne. So yeah, thank you guys very much. It is greatly appreciated. I am blown away by the increase in patronage that we've seen in the last couple months. It is truly heartwarming.
Yes. Let's keep it going. Keep sharing.
Right in the hearts.
I know. I think it's a lot to do. Not a lot to do, but, like keep sharing with your friends. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and
all that jazz.
Keep writing in.
Or call us.
Yeah. or call us, yes. Let's hear your voices.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for this week's main episode. So we're now going to go on and record post-show 4.
All right. Yes. PS 4.
And how you get that is becoming a patron,
at
everyone.
The $2 level or higher.
There you go.
At the $5 level, you can be a part of the conversation for post-show.
Which has been a hilarious experience so far.
Oh, yeah. And Aaron, thank you for joining us remotely.
Yeah.
And Lauren, thank you for powering through.
Yeah, my throat hurts really bad, but I got through.
I bet. And listeners, remember, not all those who wander are lost.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/atheistnomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice, and while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.